So you and I are sort of doing circling together on a regular basis. We're not just researching, we're practicing it.
Participant observation, hopefully getting an ethnography out of it.
Right.
And like on our last circling, I've had like insights, and it was powerful and was interesting because there's both insights within. So there's constitutive insights that are inside. I've argued elsewhere with Leo Ferraro and Adrian Heron-Bennett that flow is a sort of an insight cascade. And I think, and I've mentioned to Guy this, that I think what's happening in circling is you're trying to get a flow state going in distributed cognition. And so you get constitutive insights. These are insights that sort of prompt the circling and keep it going. And then there's these meta insights where you step back, right? Like we do when we're checking out or reflecting at the end, and you get insights about the process itself. You understand the difference here between the constitutive insights that generate the flow and then the meta insights where you sort of take away and go, oh, I have an insight about what's going on there. And in our last circling, I had both of those in a very powerful degree.
So just for people who have no idea what circling is, I know David has interviewed Guy and you can watch videos on it.
Right, totally.
It's really hard to describe like an elevator pitch, but what would you say to circling is for someone who is not really aware of it?
People often use mindfulness, but I think they use a meditative analogy, which I think isn't as good. So let me try an analogy here, because often if you give people an analogy and then you can specify it into more technical terms. So I'm a Tai Chi Chuan player, serious play, right? And you're always trying to get this bi-directional awareness going. They talk about like having two eyes. So one is an awareness that's going deep into your body and into your mind, not into your thoughts, but sort of tasting your mind. What's its temperature and texture and tempo. So you've got this inner eye, and then you've got an outer eye looking out at the environment. And then you know the way your left and right visual fields do stereoscopic fusion, so you get depth perception? What you learn to do in Tai Chi is, initially you're doing both of these and you're moving back and forth, but eventually you get that stereoscopic fusion. The inner and the outer, right, fuse together. And so that's part of how you cultivate Qi, right? And what you get then is this way in which you get very coupled simultaneously to your embodiment and then to the environment. And then, of course, you move. And what you're trying to do with the movements is you're trying to create flow, because the point of the movements is they, yin and yang, they expand and contract, and your attention is expanding and contracting, and right. And so all of this is very powerful technology to try and get you into a flow state. And now I think the same thing's happening in circling, but instead of the movements being movements of body, they're largely movements of discourse. So what's happening is, to get into circling, you're bringing this inner awareness, a kind of mindfulness, but you're trying to get it fused in this dynamic sense with an outer awareness of what's going on in other people, and then you're trying to make movements that get that into a collective flow state. So what happens often in circling is people, they're doing a thing where you can see that they're trying to, they'll give a little bit more attention to, right, what's going on inside, and then a little bit more out, and then they also do the zoom out. What's the whole group? What's the individual? And so I find it very analogous to the practice of Tai Chi, because you got the zooming out, the zooming in, and then you've got the attempt to fuse the outer awareness and the inner awareness, so they're mutually affording each other, and then this is all being coordinated, so you're getting something like a collective flow state that accesses and I think accentuates the power of distributed cognition. It engenders collective intelligence right there.
And to ground it for people who might not have experienced it before, sometimes it's called an intersubjective meditative practice, and you get in a circle, an actual circle, and then you have these sort of conversational kind of experiences, and they have these neat little warm-up exercises that we do beforehand, right? One of them I quite like is called the imagination game, and so we're just kind of sitting across from each other, and then I'm imagining something about your reality right now, whether what you're feeling or what you're thinking, and then I state it, and then you confirm if that's true or false.
Yes.
And then you do it to me. And then if you do this back and forth, your intuition muscles gets quite strong.
Yeah. You build up what Siegel called mind sight, and I built a little bit on that, on the idea of mind sight resonance. So mind sight is your ability to pick up on other people's mental states. And so what human beings do is, and we're doing it now, so I start to pick up on your mental state, and then you start to give me cues. often embodied cues like the nod, or as I pick up on you, you, right, give me cues to help me pick up more on you. And then what I then do is I tailor myself to allow you to pick up more on me. And so what starts to happen is I read you, and then that helps me better present myself so you can read me better, and then you're reading me, and then you present, and then we resonate. And so a lot of what's happening with a lot of the warm-up exercises for circling is we're trying to create mind-site resonance.
Right. And
because if I know your mental state, it's right. I'm much more successful at restructuring my communication so you'll get me. And then vice versa, we loop.
Right. And there's like you're saying, there's so much insights that are flowing in these sessions that we're having, and then you're dropping some amazing bombs. One of them that happened the last session, you had to play on words of peer.
Yes.
Right. So if you're someone's peer, you have the capacity to peer through them, but you're also allowing them to peer through you.
Yes. And so that play. So that's the playfulness that you're. So that was one of the it was like a constitutive. That really helped me stay in the flow. I also that very same time I had that what I would call a meta insight, because I was coming to the realization. I had the experience that when you're in circling, people, like, you get that salience glow that you're in the flow state, or when people are in psychedelic experience, right? And so I asked other people, was that the case? And you were there, and other people were saying, yeah. And then there was a report that this is often reported. And I thought, okay, well, I know what psilocybin's doing on the brain. It's getting areas of the brain to talk to each other that don't normally talk to each other. And there's all the hyperscanning synchrony studies. When people are doing this interpersonal stuff, the brain they start synchronizing in important ways. So I'm not claiming this is the case, but this is a really interesting hypothesis to explore. That what's happening is circling gets the interpersonal patterns of connection to be novel and restructured, and we're communicating in ways we don't normally do, and then that gets internalized as areas of the brain talking and communicating to each other in ways they don't normally do, and then that feeds back out to help the restructuring of the interpersonal, and then that feeds back in to help the restructuring of the and then you get that loop going. And if you've already got a mind-site resonance going, you could see why that would loop so powerfully.
Right. What comes to mind is this circling in particular. It's like a gym to practice truthfulness. And Daniel Schmachenberger had this interesting distinction between, truth versus truthfulness, where truth is like the correspondence theory of truth. Your map of reality accurately maps over to reality. So it's like you arrived in a way. Where truthfulness is that process, the ongoing process of mapping. And
one's a property and the other's an ideal.
Right. And then this mapping process, it localizes it in circling to the immediate moment, or your felt senses, your thoughts and whatnot.
So I think that's very good. I mean, but one of the things I would like, I suppose, for our project, I don't want to mess with circling. It is what it is, and it has the values it does, and I want to continue practicing it. But it would be nice if we could bring, so in Tai Chi, if all I'm ever doing is sort of reflecting on my, right, then I can't actually ever, I couldn't ever spar, right? I couldn't actually ever use it in self-defense. There has to be, what I'm trying to say is, yes, we get all this coordination going and we come into the present moment, but you have to be able to come into the present moment so you can do something there other than find another present moment. That's what so if you'll allow me to play a little bit more with the Tai Chi metaphor, and this is what I see happening in Socratic dialogue. You have all this stuff going. Socrates will say, do you believe that right now, or did you just hear somebody say that? If you just heard somebody say it, don't say it. Tell me what you're feeling or believing right now. Be participatory. So Socrates is doing that, but he's not doing it just to keep people in the present moment. He's keeping them in the present moment and getting this loop that we've been talking about going, so then they can then turn. It's like I feel sometimes, it's a worry. We're building this powerful machine, and then we're just like, look at how beautifully it runs. Look at how let's oil it some more. So it's running better and better. And you have to do that. You have to care. But what do we want to do with this? What I want to do with this, right, and is it would be nice, like I say, if we could use it, if we could bootstrap collective intelligence up into collective rationality, and then we could turn that powerful, self-correcting, insightful machine, if you allow me this analogy, onto issues like what is wisdom, what is a good life, what is meaning, like the things that we need to have good discussions about right now, because all of these things have fallen into impoverishment, and that's one of the things driving the meaning crisis. But we could revitalize them in really powerful ways.
And so you and I have sort of a to-do list of all these modalities to check out, right? So we're engaging in circling right now. We have something of insight dialogue. We have empathy circles, restorative circles by Dominic Barter. And my read is that all these are deliciously incomplete.
Yes.
And we're getting a taste of them, but they're hyper-focused on one thing. One's on empathy, one's on connecting.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this in the last time you came to the Intellectual Explorers Club, is that like a call to arms for like philosophers and scientists, but also artists and entrepreneurs to kind of play with this and see if we can discover something new.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and again, not to hammer on this point, but that's exactly also what you see in the Socratic, right, dialogues. Socrates, he'll talk to philosophers, he'll talk to Parmenides, but he also talks to generals, like he talks to everybody. Well, I think these issues, in one sense, are philosophically profound. I think they are philosophically profound, not in the sense of academic conceptual clarification or argumentation. I think they're philosophically profound in the ancient sense, in which they concern trying to get an understanding, right, an understanding and a self-knowledge that can really help people aspire, as I said, to wisdom and to enhancing meaning in life. And I think, if it's going to be effective, it has to, like what Socrates does, it has to be able to reach everybody who wants to be less self-deceptive, more connected. And this is a Platonic conceit on my part. I think that deep down everybody does want that. And so, yeah, I think very much we've got to engineer this and reverse engineer this so it can do exactly that. That we can say, look, we need. This term is so our terms, like, this is what we need. So many of our terms have been emptied and rendered thin. Right. But we need a kind of cognitive diversity so that we can enrich the ecology of practices as much as possible, so that the evolution of the abilities that we're seeking are optimally afforded. That's what we need. We need a lot of people involved.
Right. And it's like, it's not just you and I doing this. I just want to send out an invitation, use this conversation as an opportunity. Yes. Just everyone who feels resonant about this kind of adventure that you and I are on, want to join. Come on, let's experiment.
Yes, I think so.